I believe the line between activism and bullying, harassment, things happening in the nail community have gotten blurred. I believe these issues need to be addressed once and for all, and let's just put it all on the table what we're dealing with here. In order for bullying to be successful, it requires the participation of others. I don't know you. I've never even seen your brand before. Like, how, as a business owner, could you make a decision to do something so detrimental to somebody else's life that you don't even know? I just ask that you remove it off the internet and be more mindful of what you do next time with your business and your statements. The methods of this group are quite disturbing. When you go to someone's follower list and you start messaging everybody in their follower list, telling them they're a racist, that kind of crosses a line because people should be allowed to make a decision for themselves. I mean, people I respected in the community and had conversations with that I really enjoy. This woman's precious. If you didn't do some of these things, you're going to be under scrutiny. I have to agree with you here. Gaslighting isn't a good look. I'm going to show some examples of gaslighting throughout this video. She blocked the POC who brought this up to her, though. This is the hand of the person that brought this to the attention of the businesses. And this is her account the day this happened. This is her account now. We have instant gratification from a lie. Let's address cyberstalking for a second here. It's the use of the internet or other electronic means to stalk or harass an individual, a group, or an organization. It may include false accusations, defamation, slander, and libel. It may also include monitoring, pay attention to that one, identity theft, threat, vandalism, solicitation for sex, doxing, another one to pay attention to, or blackmail. So let me make you familiar with another term, internet troll. What is an internet troll? Well, internet trolls are people who want to provoke and upset others online for their own amusement. Internet troll is someone who makes intentionally inflammatory, rude, or upsetting statements online to elicit strong emotion responses in people, or to steer the conversation off topic. Other forms of trolling are done to push a specific agenda. Some examples of some things that happen within this hate group. There was an issue with the name of a polish. They've used what they're calling a racial slur. And although this was supposed to be about polish, it ended up not being about polish at all. It ended up being a rehashed issue from a year prior. You see, the victim is a first-generation Romani gypsy. Her parents are from Spain and Germany. This is her heritage. Her legal birth name is Gypsy in Spanish. Gitano, if I pronounce that correctly. You see, a year prior, the same group of people had come after her on Instagram about her name. Here we are a year later. It's the year anniversary of her mother's death. She changes her personal profile picture and her name in memory of her mother. Now, her account is private. She recognizes that this is the same group of people that did this to her last year. And then the antagonistic behavior begins, admitting that she's already been banned from Facebook using a fake account. Now, here's where things become disturbing. She takes a screenshot of this person's face and continues to post things personal inside this thread. And when the woman, who is a domestic abuse survivor, requests for the private information to be taken down, Ashley doubles down. She refuses to back off. She's not taking the picture down for anything. Put yourself in that position for a minute and understand how helpless and vulnerable you would feel as a domestic abuse victim. Because the only reason you would be doing that is you want to make sure that everybody else that sees this knows who to attack. People familiar with a situation try to explain that this is her heritage. This is where she comes from. These are her people. The victim herself tries to explain. But in every situation I have seen so far, the victims give in. Well, unless you're a maker, the makers just pay them off and they start swatching for the companies that they attacked months before. She was booted from the group for doxing. Then her friends came in arguing that the victim should be booted. Let's just look at doxing for a minute here. This second example is quite disturbing. Backstory to what you're seeing: they intimidated and pressured this swatcher to quit swatching for a maker because they deemed this person transphobic and then eventually worked into racist. Watching. They've been watching her account for anything, and this is something she purchased and posted, and this is what she deserves. She's got to beg you to please not do this on her page. Now, I found this particular quote about trolls very interesting because trolls seek out emotional responses and find provocation amusing. Look at some of the responses this poor woman got trying to have dialogue with them about what they'd done. Now, what transpired after? She wasn't getting any clicks, so she took it to the hate group. You can no longer monitor her? Like, what the hell? You'll see that Inspector Gadget hasn't checked the storefronts yet. Of course, she needs to add one more thing to the list. And personally, I need to address this. When I started swatching, nobody gave me an instruction list of anything to do, and it took 2 weeks for someone to tell me to put PR. She enjoys what little attention this is getting, but it's not enough. Can we talk about white swatchers blackfishing? Understand she swatches, so she understands when you're shooting a shifty polish, you need a side light or low light. Let's just make everybody that doesn't understand that think this chick is trying to look like she is a person of color. Next up, we have the racist ninja gingerbread man. Yes, you heard me correctly. Racist ninja gingerbread man. You want to roll back and look at this entire crazy debate about a racist ninja gingerbread man that causes a woman to be attacked. Then they attack this woman of color, Puerto Rican, but then they got to add the sting, right? Having an LGBTQ kid isn't a precursor to not being homophobic. And after you've basically accused her on the down low of being a racist, can't be a person of color and not be racist. Ironic. The only redeeming thing about this entire thread is that finally true Japanese people come in and give their opinion. And what is so interesting, all of a sudden civil. I mean, they're able to have a civil conversation with someone telling them that they're wrong. So if you have the ability to be civil, why not just be civil all the time? I don't understand. This uncivil behavior doesn't just stop at swatchers or people in the hate groups. This uncivil nature comes from professional makers also. You have a polish group by makers that's supposed to be offering help to the public. You have somebody ask if they take screenshots for inspiration, and that invokes completely an assault on the question she asked. When people pay that expensive price for a ticket in Chicago, you should be aware that some of these people that are uncivil to you in these polish groups are actually makers that will be there teaching you how to make polish at the shows. The very first day I ever posted anything that I had used a particular brand, I was immediately messaged by 4 different people telling me that I need to block a Sarah Smith. But there are 2 Sarah Smiths that participate in the hate groups, and unfortunately I blocked the wrong one. I had been warned that I was now swatching for 3 companies these people hate, and they were going to come after me, which explained the passive-aggressive responses I would get from her at times. I want to talk about being a hypocrite, hypocrisy. This is an entire thread about a woman of color. They are going after her because of her political beliefs, determining that her polish is not worthy of people buying, and they have accused her of being a racist. Does anyone else have a problem with a group of white people targeting a woman of color who's just opened a brand? I mean, we're talking a woman of color trying to get a business going in America with a First Amendment right, while white ticks ride the back of the POC movement in order to perpetuate their deep racism and hate towards the black community that they can't speak out against when they want to. Political belief is not a reason for you nail Nazis to come after her. For some reason, you don't see that your actions are no different than the bigots demanding people of color be removed from schools and restaurants, no better than the ignorant who created the utter fear in the gay community in the onset of AIDS, demanding businesses fire gay employees simply for being gay. Your method is no different than extremism on the other side. Out of the 8,000 screenshots I've been given by people watching the destruction of others for years by your hands, I was most shocked by the blatant racial extortion of companies. This is where you go after a company, accusing them of being racist, and in some cases having proof of them being racist. Not falsified proof like in my situation, but blatant racism. Within a month, those very people that started it are getting paid to swatch for those companies, and they don't suffer the ramifications like everybody else that doesn't fall to the extortion scheme. Within this racial extortion, let me make you familiar with a term called ghosting, something I'd never heard of. Ghosting is when a swatcher is sent PR and they never do what they're supposed to do with it. They simply ignore the maker that sent the PR. Part of the extortion is after the accusation of no diversities in these companies. The companies, of course, reach out to them and send PR for diversity. But they never do the PR. They simply keep the product. And then anyone who goes to work for those companies after is accused of racism or bullied into not swatching for those companies. And you'd ask yourself, why is this? Well, because those companies did not offer to pay them. This isn't a big secret. This is discussed within the swatcher world constantly. Now, you might be asking yourself, who is this white racist telling a woman of color to go F herself in the ass with a prickly... Sarah Smith, not the polish maker. Sarah Smith on Instagram, part of the hate group. The problems within doxing are rampant. These groups target your husbands, your children, and they find this information by watching the targeted swatcher or maker's likes and comment section, as my followers have discovered in the last 3 weeks. Your customers. I've only shared a few of the 100 I have received, as most were specific and certainly would be recognized by these individuals and targeted further. If someone is what these groups say, then why the targeted behavior? Why target your customers, who quite frankly are tired of watching CNN versus Fox when we tuned into nails? This isn't a dismissal of racial issues or problems within our world. It's begging for the one group always left out of the conversation of importance. Those of us who are suicidal, depressed, domestic abuse victims, people suffering from trauma, and we are begging the powerful within the nail industry to do something. You're told to make your own group. And then when someone does, they infiltrate it. They screenshot the administrators, the people within the group, and any makers who join or comment. And then the hate group has a week of entertainment at the cost of those of us who need the distraction like oxygen. As your customer that's never applied for a swatching job one single time, will it take the suicide of a business owner or a targeted swatcher before this industry recognizes the problem you've ignored? As for critics of my method here, this is public information that I feel the public needs to be aware of. They need to lock down their social media, because you never know what makers or what swatchers are targeted on these lists. It's ever changing depending on who they're working for and what accusations. We need change within the indie community, a tolerance for those desperate to escape hate and uncivil behavior, to enrich our creativity and communicate with other creative people who need this for our mental health. I'm sick of seeing how the bullies are hurt, stressed, and so fragile. You literally lied. You falsified screenshots to cancel culture me without knowing a damn thing about me. You intentionally took a statement unintended to be hurtful, and you made it racist by using comments to someone else and presenting a case to the masses. I expect you will go straight to the new hate group and bash my sincere apology. You'll whine about doxing and privacy, perhaps even trying the victim card. But the community knows now exactly what kind of people are throwing around these accusations. The very people who ignore real racism for payment and create false racism for anyone standing in the way while allowing racism to exist amongst their own.